So, just a couple things I want to talk about today. Is that recording okay?
Chopping your head off.
Okay. All right. I sent you guys an email on not losing our loans to other branches. I want to make sure you guys understand how this works. If you guys are talking about England, Arkansas, and Bank of England in Arkansas, and branches in Arkansas, and branches in Florida, branches all over, and your customer calls that branch, and they're over, and that customer is located over there, then they have the right to take that lead, even though it came from us, because that's a territory agreement, and the way that works is. For fair lending purposes, the branch the proximity where that customer is located, they get the lead, regardless. So my advice to you is a few things. Stop mentioning other branches, okay? Because there's a bunch of branches in Little Rock that work under the corporate office, and just a point in fact that one of them, Casey, lost to one of those branches. And so, oh yeah, we're based out of England, Arkansas. Okay, let me go call them and then let them take my lead too. So stop doing it, because you're going to lose loans. And I can't do anything about it because of the fair lending restrictions. So, and basically fair lending says that the closest branch gets the lead, even though I originated the lead. And so that's a regulation. So just keep that in mind when you start talking about how big we are and everything that we do, that another thing, if you don't return their calls, and then they go Google, Orlando, Bank of England, and they call that branch and talk to that manager, they're gonna snatch your lead from you. So I'm not saying that, I'm just telling you that so you understand how this works. They're not gonna hand the lead over to you. I promise you, this happened to David, because he didn't return someone's calls. They're just going to go Google that, BOE or Bank of England, and they're going to say, oh well, it's in Michigan. I'm just going to call that one right there. I can't get David on the phone. It happened to me on Friday with David, $300,000 loan under contract in Connecticut. David's not returned his calls. Loan went back to the Connecticut branch. Can't do anything about it.
Easy scoop for
Yeah, well, they didn't have to do anything. So I'm just telling you guys so you understand how this works, that return people's calls, return the realtor's calls. It's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do. So that's a really important thing. The other thing is that, I've sent out a few emails. I encourage you, whenever you're talking to people on the line, it may be a good judgment call, depending on the lead, to let them know for quality assurance that the call can be recorded. I don't know if you want to do that with every customer, but sometimes it's good to pull that out, get into a habit of saying that sometimes. I think it's good. Also, I'm really, from an office perspective, I'm not hearing enough of asking for referrals. We need to be asking for a lot more referrals. Ask and you shall receive. That's what Jesus said. Ask and you shall receive. You're not going to get anything if you don't ask for it. Whether it's money, relationships, whatever, notoriety, you have to ask for it. It's not going to fall on your lap. So we really need to be in a conscious effort to ask for more referrals. It's really, really important while you have someone on the phone, or whatever the situation is with a realtor, that you were asking for more referrals. And then whenever we're pre-approving a customer, and we got to get this worked out when they're dealing with a builder, okay? Because for example, okay, like you are potentially lost a $250,000 loan to D.R. Horton. And I told you earlier that there's something's wrong there, because you asked the customer for the quote and he doesn't want to give it to you. He says, show me yours. When I hear that, you didn't build enough value in the relationship. There's something's not right that the customer would talk to you like that. You see, because if you and the customer had a strong bond, he would come to you and want to know, hey Nick, what's going on? Why am I being told this? But he's coming to you kind of in a state of skepticism. You see what I'm saying? Like, why would he not want to give you the estimate? And then he's going with the other lender, and so there's something there. Either and this was with Christina's realtor, and now Christina's realtor has not returned your calls. You see, when these type of things are happening, these are like huge like red flags, and you have to. This should put you in a state of just absolute. You have to take a massive sense of urgency, and this should infuriate you, because now you've potentially lost $2,500. You're talking about getting the house. That's your money to get the house. You have to make that connection in your mind. If you don't make that connection, you're not going to have any motive. So, the thing is that when you're setting up the call, and I'm not doing this, and it's happened to all of us, but we have to teach this so that we understand how to handle it, so that way it can prevent from happening. Because you did all this work to get this guy pre-approved, and then it just disappears. What kind of business? That's not a business model. So you see what I'm saying? You did all this effort, all this energy, all this work to get the loan in, and then the guy goes to another lender. So we can't let that happen. So we have to hash that out with we got to get that addressed up front with the realtor, and have that conversation with the buyer up front to make sure that when they go into the lion's den, they know what to be prepared for. So you have the best chance to keep that loan in. You see what I'm saying? So, and
that's something Nick and I talked about the other day, where the BombBomb video is going to help, because that BombBomb video builds not just credibility, but it makes that extra connection with that person. So they feel like they know you more than just a voice on the phone. I know it sounds, somewhat trite, but I think it makes a major, major difference where these types of things won't happen.
BombBomb video, educating them, letting them know, hey, listen, when you go talk to the builder, here's what's going to happen. So they're going to offer you all these incentives and all these lures, but you're going to pay for it on the back end. They're going to jack up the price of the house. They're either going to jack up the rate, and I'm just letting you know this up front so you know how they're going to play the cards. And so that way, when you go in there, you're going to know what's up. And you need to have that conversation with the realtor. Okay, I understand Mr. Jones wants to go look at new homes, but when you take my client into that builder's office, you let them know that the financing is already secured. We're just interested in the house. If you cannot do that, then you cannot represent my customer. So if you don't have that conversation with the realtor when you're interviewing them, then you have a high chance you're going to lose the loan, because now he's not returning your call, because his commission is already paid by the builder. You think he cares about you? He doesn't care about you. So, you have to have these conversations with people and talk to them about that, because remember, you're sourcing the lead. This is your lead. It's not their lead. Look how silly this looks. You're the guy that brought the lead to the builder and to the realtor, and now you get no cut. That's unbelievable. I mean, how can that even happen? I mean, it just blows my mind. We're the one that generated the lead, and now we're not even getting anything out of it. And so it's not acceptable. So the thing is that we can't allow that to happen. So we have to obviously fight for it, but how we can protect ourselves to a degree is, building a solid foundation, solid relationship with the customer. BombBomb videos are good. Explain to them how it works with home builders, and with the rates and the fees, or with the incentives that they offer. Now, will it work 100% of the time? No, it doesn't. But at least you're giving yourself a statistical chance to get some of those deals converted. You know what I mean? And so, with the realtor, when you're interviewing them with Christina, this is something you need to be talking to them about is, hey, well, how do you handle this with new home builders? How do you handle it? Let's see what he says. Because what I do with my realtors is I make sure that whenever they go in there, not to mention financing. That's already been taken care of, sir. And actually, we have a very good relationship with D.R. Horton. I don't know what state is this in, or what city is it in?
This is in Arizona.
Okay. So in Texas, we have a very good relationship. They don't do that here in Texas with us. But, you know, you have to make that call to D.R. Horton. And I mean, you know, we've taught some of these other guys like Joe. This happened to Joe, and this happened to Steve and Danny, other people, and I think it's happened to you, where you have to make the call out to the builder, and win that over real fast before they come and try and snatch it up. You know, and so this is you know, again, you have the opportunity in your hand. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to let it slip away? You know, or are you gonna work it? Are you gonna close it? See what I'm saying? And so whenever this happens, you know, it should be, you need to move quickly to save it. But you know, we have to look back and analyze our mistakes to see where we went wrong, so it doesn't happen again. Now, the thing is, you know, sometimes the builders' incentives will be, could be too irresistible, and that can happen sometimes. You know, but generally what ends up, how this works is what they're doing is they're raising the interest rate to give a lender credit to cover closing costs. The other thing is that you see the sales counselor giving the offer to the customer, and they've never been pre-approved or checked anything. It's not the actual lender. This happened with B's loan with Lennar and Conroe, where the guy, the customer was quoted at 3.25 by the sales counselor. Okay, the guy selling the house, not even the lender. The guy had never even had any estimate or anything, and the guy refused to do anything with us unless we matched the rate. I said, well, can you show me the offer that they gave you? Where's the offer? And there was never no offer, right? And so, you know, the customer called me and said, hey, I'm just going to go with you. They're not getting back to me now. They're not returning my calls. And finally, when we pulled credit, the guy had a 580 credit score. It was all bullshit. You know, and just because a piece of paper that said in the new house was 3.25 interest rate, he thought that was his offer. So you don't even have a real offer in front of you. Someone just told them something, and that's different. Where we're pre-approving people for real, you know, from your desk. You know, where we're checking everything. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I see that a lot where they see something on a flyer when they walk in the house that says 3.25, $898 payment, and they think that's what they're getting. And that's just not how it works. That's not a pre-approval. You see? So, but you have to take the time to learn these things, or you're going to lose deals. You know, you really need to understand what you're doing and really invest the time to learn these things, because you can't. I mean, none of us can afford to lose loans, and so you know. But yeah, I mean, you got to get in front of the key takeaways here. Is you got to get with the builder. You got to win them over. Initially, when you talk to the realtor, you got to ask them those tough questions, and how do they handle new home builders, and are you gonna be able to do this if you go to the new builder? He says, no, I'm not doing that, Nick. He needs to go with a builder's lender. Why would he go with you? Okay, well, we're not working together then. There's no point for me to give you my customer.
Right.
You need to address that up front. You know. And you educate the customer up front, let him know, hey man, this is what they're going to try and do. They're all going to try and get together so they can get kickbacks off you. They're either going to jack up the price of the house, or they're going to jack up your loan. One or the other. One way you're paying for it, one way or the other. At least here, you know, it's unbiased. Where you're getting the loan right from the bank, and we're lending you directly, and we can give you lender credits too, and you know, give you the first-time buyer tax credit and all these other incentives. And that way, you know, you're not going to get a jacked up rate, or the price of your home is going to be higher. And let's just compare and look at it. But you know, at the end of the day, we're going to give you the best deal, and I'll put my name behind that. But you know, you want to build that much value with the customer, so that way when he's approached, he's going to remember the conversation. You go, oh, I remember Nick told me the guy was going to do that. Yeah, I remember that now. Oh, now I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to make extra money off me. You see? So, I mean, has anyone had that happen to them?
Oh yeah, Beatty, Dade, Yatsuda.
Yeah, yesterday I was
You
answering a
named it.
question. Actually, you were in there. I was writing an email template for that same purpose, where people dealing with builder incentives.
Okay, and what happened?
So I wrote up an email template just to like explain the process of it, so that basically when that happens, they know. So it's kind of like a warning when people are going to look at builders or whatever. Kind of here's how the incentive process works. Here's what they do, and like basically showing them so that they get expected and they know, okay, it's not necessarily a better deal. So you say you're getting concessions back from the builder, or you're getting whatever from the lender, they think that they're actually getting like 6,000 back, but that's built into the sales price, or the rate might be higher. And so when they know that, then they go into it and they're going to have a lot more kind of skepticism, and they can compare the true offer with what we have. So
Okay.
I think another way that we even know that is a red flag is when we interview the realtor up front, but then when it comes down to putting in an offer on the home, they're refusing our concessions. That's a telltale sign that lets me know, and I'll ask, even with Beatty's realtor, I ask, well, why are they not willing to do any concessions? Well, because that's when they let me know it was a builder involved, and but they did incentivize him. If they went with the builder's lender, they'll give him $2,500, and then they came back after that and offered him another $2,700. So they were offering him $5,200 to go with them, and all they could do with us was offer $500 on the concession. So I sort of nipped it at the bud before it got to the $5,200, because the fact that they didn't offer any concessions let me know that, okay, there's something going on here. They wouldn't even offer. They accepted our offer, but they said with no contribution from the seller. And when I started talking with the realtor, he was like, hey man, that's what they're doing out here, and all we can do is just go with their, can he get the loan without the concessions? I said, yeah, he can, but remember, I wanted you to be there to fight for his best interest as well as ours. To get concessions as well as protect our interest as a bank, that you don't allow. What kept happening was the agent or the salesperson from the builder kept calling my client, and I said, it's going to be one more conversation I'm going to have with you, that after that conversation I'll be calling that builder's sales rep, and it's not going to be a pleasant conversation, because I look at it that we gave you a client. That's our client. We made them a mutual client, but you wouldn't have had them if it weren't for us.
Right.
So you can't just go arbitrarily and just offer them. Now, if you offer them something and they say no, don't keep backdooring the guy and calling the guy back and forth, to incentivize him to go with you. I think that's just sort of like uncouth, and it's just bad business. And my realtor through Christina agreed, so he did talk with them. But I think those hard conversations got to take place.
They
Because
do.
if not, they're gonna just take them, man. It's
Yeah.
dog eat dog.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm gonna bring it up again. I mean, if you don't fight for that, then you're gonna kiss that 2,500 goodbye.
Yeah, I had no idea. This is the first time I've had a customer walk inside one of those builder's office. I had no idea what these builders are capable of. So I walked in there, and I did. And the funny thing is, the realtor did call me or text me and says, hey, we're gonna be meeting the builder this afternoon. And I'm thinking in my mind, okay, and I had no idea. That should have been a red flag for me, but it's the first time. I never even knew that builders can offer these incentives and what they're going to do.
They're used to dealing with their own lenders, man. And the bottom line, they want to see the loan close on time. They want to see the loan close, period.
Yeah.
And they feel more comfortable with someone they're used to dealing with, rather than someone they've never necessarily heard of or never dealt with. So we got to strengthen our position with them, and it starts with our client. I mean, it has to start with our client, because we don't have an opportunity to talk with them initially.
Yeah, and then you gotta get in there with the builder and with the realtor. This is your best chance, because 25% of the loans that you're probably gonna see, they're probably looking at new homes, and you're gonna have to know how to deal with that, man. If you don't, your income's gonna suffer real bad. So I'm just telling you, so that way, so when it happens, you know how to deal with it, at least to give yourself some type of edge, So I want to move to something else real quick. Top mistakes that you've made since you've been here, Casey. What are the top mistakes, real quick? Give me some of the top mistakes you made since you've been here. that you've learned from?
I'd say probably the biggest mistake was, that Foster deal, not explaining, the concession, or actually not knowing the proper concessions, and explaining that process, and also the pre-qual with the rate, I didn't explain that that's probably not the rate they're gonna get, that's just a buffer, cost me a deal.
What do you mean that the concessions and the rate? What do you mean by that?
Well, as far as what closing costs would be, I didn't know what the closing costs would be on the loan, and I just guessed at it, and so whenever I bumped up the purchase contract, it was far beyond on what the actual closing would be,
Mm-hmm.
and it ultimately cost me the deal.
Because you told the realtor the concessions are going to be 5% instead of 3%, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and when the realtor heard that, what happened?
Yeah, she went and took the loan to someone she knew.
And why'd she do that?
Why? I'm sure she probably got a kickback. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, she thought it was that we're priced out of the market,
Yeah.
right? And that plus we're out of town, plus she doesn't know us, plus, and see you later. You know, so you gotta know these things and you gotta learn them. And can you learn everything?
Also, she thought that the lead came from Christina, not us. So she had so she had zero connection to us. So,
Well, didn't you do an interview call with her?
yeah, we did, but I guess we didn't make that quite clear enough.
Okay. Okay.
This is based on our argument that we had. So she,
Okay.
she said that wasn't your lead, that was Christina's lead. So,
Okay. Well, yeah. So see, that's why a lot of this has to be flushed out in that interview call when you're talking to the agent that's getting the lead, and make sure that they understand that. So, and okay, so you think that's one of the biggest mistakes that you've
That's the
made?
biggest mistake I've made. I've made other mistakes, but I was able to salvage them.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
like the one last night where the disclosure, the disclosures got sent out. And I was in the middle of something, and I didn't get a chance to call my client and explain everything to her. And she kind of sent me an email last night, freaking out that the rate was higher than what she thought it was going to be, and also it was something about the closing costs. They were too high. So, but I was able to salvage it. I talked to her. Everything's good.
Okay, so going over the closing disclosures with customer, always a critical thing. I've stressed that a million times how important that is. If you don't do that, you're leaving that you're a lot up to interpretation from the customer, and they don't understand a lot of the documents. So that's very, very important. Okay, Mark, real quick, man, biggest mistakes you
Yeah,
made.
made a lot of mistakes. I would say one of my biggest ones, we've talked about this before, is chasing the field mice. Like you see something come in and you want to make it work, and you got to allocate your time well. You want to chase down there. There's good leads coming in all day, and if you spend all your effort on like rescores on a $70K loan, I mean it's that's going to take all your time up, and you're going to get bogged down. And it's not that you want to let anything go, but you gotta focus your efforts on where you're going to be the most effective. What's really going to bring in good business. And we've started putting emphasis on this more too, is like packaging quality loans. It's not just bringing anything in, because when you bring in anything, it's just going to clog everything up, and you're going to get stuck, and it's going to take loans are going to drag on, and then that's going to take a lot of your time. So when you can get a quality loan that's well packaged, that's you've dealt with everything, taking that upfront time, then that's gonna things are gonna go through a lot quicker, and that's the biggest difference. I mean, there's loans that I've gone through and I hardly even remember the person because it was set up so well when I first did it. It just went through, and there's other loans that I'm dealing with people every day because there was issues from the beginning that I could have caught probably before I ever brought the loan in.
I do have a question for you. And talking with Josh, he thinks that you're going to be, and that you are one of the most successful loan officers here, and in the long term, you have probably a lot as far as a bright future in the business and long term. As far as your commitment, your understanding, and you've always been your work ethic But one thing that I wanna know, and going back to this right here, cause
Yeah.
you started right when Davis started,
Yeah.
right? And we saw how Davis' production kind of broke out and yours lagged a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you think and was it this right here? This, or is it, or what was it, what's the difference, how, you know,
I mean, I think there's a number of factors. I mean, I think starting out, I still came from a place where I knew nothing. Like, he had bought a house before. He had a little, like, it
Okay.
took me a while. I mean, I didn't go through the mortgage process for,
That's
it
true.
was 2 months before I even had ever been to a closing. So, like, when I started out, I remember you gave me a list of realtors to call in my first week to set up appointments. And they kept saying stuff about, like, escrow and underwriting. I was like, I don't even know what this stuff is. Like, I've never even heard of these words before. So there was a huge learning curve. I
okay,
think,
that makes a
personally.
lot of sense.
Um,
That makes a lot of sense.
So it took me a while to do that, and then once I understood things that I was still, I'd never really like closed a lot of business, so I was afraid to let things go.
Right,
So,
okay.
I had a deal, and I was like, I got to work this deal, I got to make this work, because, even if it's a $70,000 rescore, I'm like, this is what I have, so I got to hold on to it.
Okay.
And there's things now that I turn down because I'm like, no, there's another, there's a 180 or 200 or 250 out there that I can go get,
Mhm.
and knowing I can go get that.
Okay, so that goes back to the
So-
field mice versus the antelope.
Yeah, so it goes back to that. So, I mean, you focus on your efforts. If you're chasing something specific, that's what you're going to get. And so
Interesting.
if you focus your, if you're going after good loans that are going to close, that are solid, you're going to get those because that's what you're going after.
Mhm.
So you've got to allocate your time. You don't have time every day to, give people life advice. That's what I try. At first I was like advising people. I was like, you got to get a W-2 job. I was like being a life coach to people, and you don't have time to do that.
They don't pay well, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's people that months. Like I remember, there's times I've gone back through my queue and I'm just like delete. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but no, I think, but I tell you what though, like what I've seen now, like what you've developed into, I think from here on out, the acumen that you developed, that you'll be a multi-million-dollar producer. Like you've learned that now,
Mhm.
and you never gave up. You kept going. Don't quit and you win, right?
Yeah.
And so is one thing I've always kept with me is you have to keep going. No
Yeah.
matter what. I mean, I talk about the stream and the rock. The stream wins. That rock sits on there for a long time, but that water keeps going, pushing up against it.
Yeah.
Keeps pushing up against the rock, and finally just moves the boulder out of
Yeah,
the way.
and I think that's a big part of it too. Is you go through a lot in the business. That there's so many moving parts, and there's things that hit, and you're just like, I never saw this coming. But being able to push through that, I mean, that's, to me, I knew it was a new industry. I knew it was going to be a big learning curve. That it was going to be tough to get into and figure it out because I had no
Mhm.
background.
Yeah.
So I was like, even if it takes me a little bit longer to get up and running, if I stick with it every single day, I'm getting better and better.
Mhm.
Then eventually I'll get to a good place. And
Yeah.
I think that's an important mentality to have because people are going to come in with different at different levels
Yep.
here, and long term, yeah, it's that commitment of just like coming in every day and dealing with those problems. Like when we talk about this, what's the mistakes that you've made the most, and then taking those very seriously and
Mhm.
correcting those
Mhm.
every single day.
Mhm.
Because every month, I mean, every even weeks, I still feel like I'm learning so rapidly. Like now, I look at the beginning of this month compared to where I was last month, and what I know about loans, how to talk to people, how to package things. It's just, I think it's a different level, and you can keep getting better very quickly. I think.
Good. Very good. Joe, top mistakes that you've made, my friend.
I think one of the more obvious, because I'm like Mark, I'm constantly making mistakes, constantly. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because I'm working the deals, I'm putting them in. But one of the biggest ones is probably not scrubbing the income docs, particularly the 1040 executed tax returns. Looking for unreimbursed expenses and things of that nature, and also scrubbing the credit bureaus. Understanding the programs, I believe, is important as well, to know when an authorized user account is going to kick that loan out in USDA, or collection accounts, for instance, totaling over a certain amount and not dating them properly. I mean, those types of details, and that's one thing that both you and Josh always tell me. You got to pay closer attention to the details, because in this industry, it's all about the details. You know, you can be a great communicator and connector on the phones, which I believe I'm good at that. But it's going to be offset by the lack of attention. So I'm adjusting my thinking to put more attention to those details and make sure that I'm doing it early on in the process, as opposed to waiting and then finding myself in what I call damage controlled mode, where I'm trying to save the loan. And I can scramble. I mean, I'm like, I don't know if anybody remember Fran Tarkenton. Remember Fran? Or Kenny Stabler, those old school guys, man, that can run around, quarterbacks that can run around for 40 minutes without getting tackled. I can scramble, but I'm wasting a lot of time and energy because I'm using that energy to scramble where I could have been proactively scrubbing and really paying attention to those things, and then getting those documents, or at least asking those questions to those clients up front. So it's not about how many mistakes I've made, or because I'm going to continue to make mistakes, but I believe the one who makes the most mistakes is at some point going to make the most money too, because they're doing the most things. So I'm not opposed to making mistakes, but I want to learn from them. And continue to get better.
Right, and I think that's very important. Yeah, I mean, and so, the structure of the loan is critical, cash to close, making sure you have that conversation up front with the customer if you're doing an FHA loan or there's assets that are needed. Understand the guidelines. I mean, now you also mentioned to me that you're going to make a personal commitment to study daily.
Yes.
Okay, because and so, I mean, obviously, that's critical, because you've been out of the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
And coming back into it, you've seen that it's completely changed.
It's altogether different.
So, investing the time to train and learn every day is critical, and you have a plethora of knowledge before you. And so, even if it's 30 minutes, even if it's 15 minutes, do as much as you can to keep learning, because there's so much, and mastering the guidelines is critical. You really need to understand the guidelines, because, just for example, on your baby loan, knowing that we can go to expanded ratios for manual underwrites for FHA can make all the difference if you know that, and how to get him approved for that, whereas other lenders may deny him. So knowing the guidelines, knowing what to do and when, and so always constantly sharpening your saw. And you have all this information there. It's like just on a different subject, but the same idea. That lady that came in 3 weeks ago from the title company, Casey showed me last night that he asked her for realtor referrals, and she sent him a list of realtor leads. How many other people had the idea to do that? Not a lot of people had that idea. See, it comes to you when it's on your mind all the time. Like I was saying earlier, it's with every breath you take. So if something's always on your mind, then things are coming to you. Hey, go do this. Like you sent me an MCC video on Sunday. Something came to you to go look online for that and then send that to me. You see? That means that you're starting to care about the business. You understand what I'm saying? But if you're just here just to collect a paycheck and get up and get out, then the creativity is never going to come to you. Because, you see, your mind's on something else. Because remember, where the mind goes, the body's going to follow the mind.
Yeah.
You see? So if the mind's on going to go play piano somewhere, and or wherever you're thinking about, then you're going to get up and go follow. And so, and you just watch people what they do all day, and one thing I do like what B says awareness is godliness. That's one thing I do like about what he said. That's a good one. So, and it's true. You have to watch to see what are you doing all day, and that's going to show you who you are. And so, the point is that how committed you are is going to be related to how much action you take, how creative you are. You've learned this information. How are you going to apply it now when you talk to the next builder or realtor? Are you going to go and jump in there and save this one? You know what I mean? Yeah. And because you got to fight for it. Just like when Danny lost his deal the other day, I said I'm not going to let it go away, and I wasn't. And you have to go in there and you got to fight for it, man. And so, I mean, how bad, and I was saying this earlier when you were talking to John, you know, one of the biggest things I think for being successful in any endeavor is how hungry are you? How bad do you want it? You know, how bad do you want it? I mean, you know, a lot of people, you know, like, I think one of the things that Sean said to Jason today is, hey man, I don't see a lot of people in here this morning. You know, and for a new guy to say that, that's a, you know, interesting statement. You know, and I don't know if people were calling from home or what they were doing, but you know, the thing is that I'm not saying it to toot my own horn, but the richest guy is always the first one in, last one out. It's got to tell you something. And I don't have to come up here. You know, so but it just tells you that. I mean, you know, how bad you want something, you know, where your commitment is, and how hungry are you for your goals. How bad do you want that lifestyle, or whatever you're going after? I don't know. How bad do you want the house, man? Okay, well if you do, then things got to change, bud. They're gonna have to change. You know, I mean, it's just that's how it works. I mean, and once you do, everything else will flow in, you know, fall in line for you.
Right.
You know, and so anyway,
I'd like to add something if I may.
Sure.
And it's something that, you know, coming from the industry that I believed I was successful at the first go around, but I have a higher expectation of success this second time around. But the industry I'm finding is so different than, much more highly regulated than it was back then in the early 2000s. But I think one of the things I'm focusing on now is, I always say slow down so I can speed up. Mm-hmm. You know, focusing on the details and concentrating on those things, but also when I learn something, how quickly can I implement it into my daily activity? Or for instance, and some of the best way, unfortunately, some of the best ways of learning is to be burnt by something. You know, I would love to learn it by somebody just having a class on it or a training on it. But for instance, unreimbursed expenses was actually trained on maybe 2 or 3 weeks prior to a situation that came up. It wasn't to say that the training wasn't good, but it was something about it that once I got into that fight with that situation, I learned it. Now the question is, how quickly can I implement it? So the next file, am I going to wait to have that situation come up again where it's like in the middle of a loan, or am I going to proactively go into there and not only look for that, but look for other things like that that's going to make sure that I'm not going to have a battle to get this loan into processing. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. So that speed of implementation to me makes a big difference. How quickly can I hear something, learn from something, and now implement it so I don't have to go through that again. Right. You know, and that's what I'm focusing on right now, to shorten that time of implementation.
So what are you doing? Are you like so when you learn something now, do you write it down? Do you commit it to memory? Do you rehearse it? Or how are you, like, what are you doing to ensure that you can reduce that?
I'm taking notes, and I'm taking notes, a lot of notes on my iPad. One of the things I'm doing as far as the studying is really the same. It's the same thing. I can learn it by study as well as I can learn it by having it burn me. So I'd rather learn by studying it than having it burned. So I'm going in, I'm saying for 30 minutes a day, let me just go in and just study the LO hacks. Let me go in and read some of the, or in this case, listen to some of the videos that I was, you know, inundated with the first week I was here. Just go revisit those videos, and how I'm implementing that is just basically every file that I have, I'm going back through the file and just scrubbing it all over again. Talking with Tyron and Prisciliano. Mm-hmm. Prisciliano. So we can have two heads, you know, better than one type of thing. Right. 4 eyes are better than 2. Just to look at the file from that perspective, and now, you know, scrubbing it together. Mm-hmm. You know, putting more eyes on. I think the philosophy now is check, recheck, and check again.
Yeah, measure twice, cut once.
Measure twice and cut once.
Yeah, trust but verify.
Yeah, and that's how I believe the speed of implementation is taking place, man. Just reading it, studying it more, committing it, you know, committing to doing better, and that's really what it boils down to. Mm-hmm. You know, and it should be made evident by the loans that are being
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
that's the thing, I mean, you know, everybody goes through that, and so, just we wanna reduce that as much as possible. Okay, awesome, guys, thank you so much for taking the time, I'm gonna upload this video, very good video, thank you.